during a conversation with actor Russell Crowe, Joe Rogan made a point that, well, I think it's fair to say most Americans can agree with about the epidemic of political corruption.
We're trying to say that you're either red or that you're blue.
Right.
The idea that you can split all of us into two camps is kind of nuts.
Hello, folks, and welcome back. Buckle up. Ever feel like you're watching a political puppet show where the strings are pulled by invisible hands? You're not alone. Today, we're diving headfirst into a clip that tackles the elephant in the room, the absolute, undeniable corruption that's rotting our political system from the inside out. We're talking about the kind of truth bomb that makes you want to throw your remote at the TV, or maybe just stand up and cheer. So let's hit play, and then we'll hit pause to dissect some of the revelations that some of us have known for decades.
It's nuts.
You know?
Yeah, it's nuts. In this country in particular, I don't know about Australian politics, but we only have two parties, and they're both essentially financed by enormous corporations. So it's a ruse. The whole thing's a ruse.
Right.
And you have different social issues on each side that come up, and then it becomes this: you're with us or against us, right versus left. But
It's going nowhere good.
nowhere good.
No, we're good. Now, Cenk, we have data to back this up, and we'll get to that. But first, your 2 cents.
I mean, this is the essence of my book, Justice is Coming. Yes, it's all a ruse, it's all theater. And mainly, Sharon, I'm so excited that others have begun to figure out, yeah, they're just getting you to fight so that they can rob the place blind. So let's tell them about the great American robbery.
Let's do that. Rogan is right. Special interest groups fund both parties. Take crypto, for example. After the 2024 election, CNN reported this. The cryptocurrency industry's leading super PACs plowed $131 million into congressional races this election cycle to help elect dozens of pro-crypto lawmakers, while individual billionaires with crypto interests, they spent millions to help return Donald Trump to the White House. Crypto super PACs spend heavily on Republicans as well as key Democrats. How about the banking and real estate industry? According to Open Secrets, they've donated nearly the exact same amount to congressional Republicans and Democrats since 1990, topping $4.5 billion total. I mean, just look at it. It's even split just about. Money to Congress from the financial insurance real estate industry. That is what the graph shows. The defense industry also poured money into candidates on both sides of the aisle, with contributions exceeding $300 million. So the corruption is definitely bipartisan, and the American people know this. 84% of respondents in a Pew Research poll agree special interest groups and lobbyists have too much to say in what happens in politics. And that is true for both Republicans and Democrats. So yeah, this is no surprise to you, Cenk, and you've been talking about this for, gosh, I don't know how many, I don't want to age you, but probably decades at this point. But this has been going on for so long. Why now? Why now are people waking up? Will it matter? Will it make a difference?
Yeah, so I think it will eventually make a difference. I think the revolution has begun. We literally do a show called The Revolution now at 8 o'clock Eastern, right after the Young Turks. That's 6 to 8 every day. And I now see it not just on the left, but also on the right and the middle, right? So Rogan backed Trump this summer, and before he backed Bernie, I think it's fair to say that Rogan's independent. I think it's also fair to say that he maybe these days leans a little right, maybe a lot right in some of the instances, and we certainly disagree with him on some of the culture war issues, et cetera. But it's super refreshing, and it's wonderful to hear that he gets it. The whole thing's a play, guys. And by the way, the people who put on the play is chapter 5 of my book. That's mainstream media. I called it The Matrix. And so now it's funny because some others on the right also call it The Matrix, because it's The Matrix. Because corporate media tells you, and it's the most important arm of corporate rule, it's the #1 shield and weapon that they have. They'll tell you, no, money in politics is not that big a deal. That's why they almost never talk about it. So when legislation is being discussed, there's money being poured in by the hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, later in today's show, we're gonna have a discussion about the big pharma, which is one of the biggest lobbying groups in the whole country that represent the drug companies, of course, they've spent $3.6 billion lobbying over the last 3 decades. You think they spent $3.6 billion for their health? No, they're buying up all of our politicians. That's why we have these preposterous laws that say we're not allowed to negotiate drug prices, that a company can set the price and that's it, you gotta pay it. You don't have a choice. That's not capitalism, that's not the free market. No, this is corporatism. Corporations have completely taken over and they have this faux battle between the Democrats and the Republicans, usually about culture war issues. That's how they divide you and get you to fight the people on your left or the people on your right, when of course, you know what I'm gonna say. You should be looking up, look up. The rando on your left doesn't have any, even if the right wing is right about Antifa, like, oh my God, there's a dude in Portland and he protests too hard and he did something, they did graffiti, oh, Antifa. You think that brother had enough power to rig the whole system? Or a guy on the right, oh, that guy's racist and he's terrible. The brother's living in a rental in the middle of Nebraska, he doesn't have any power. The guy who came in across the border a minute ago that barely has $1 in his pocket, he doesn't have any power. The guys with the power are the guys with the money up top, the donors. So Sharon, I think that the Great Awakening began with Epstein and Israel, right? When Trump came in after saying, oh, we're gonna release the Epstein files, we're gonna release the Epstein files. And he came in and was like, I'm just kidding, I'm a liar just like everyone else. I'm protecting the elites just like everyone else.
Whoa, hold on a minute. I'm just kidding, I'm a liar? That's a pretty heavy accusation to throw at a former president, especially one who believes wholeheartedly actually trying to drain the swamp, or at least started to expose the swamp creatures. Now, look, no one's perfect, and the political game is a dirty one. But to paint Trump as just like everyone else when it comes to the deep state establishment, that's a classic case of missing the forest for a single tree. Let's be real. The Epstein saga is a black hole of unanswered questions, and it implicates far more than just one administration. It points to the persuasive, shady networks that span across political parties, industries, and even international borders. To solely blame Trump for not releasing the files is to ignore the monumental forces he was up against. This isn't about one guy being a liar. It's about a system so entrenched, so powerful, that it can stonewall even the most powerful men in the world. Think about it like this. When a president, any president, tries to pull back the curtain on something truly heinous, the entire establishment recoils. They'll use every tool in their arsenal, media smears, bureaucratic obstruction, even whispers of impeachment to keep those secrets buried. It's not about a lack of will, it's about a lack of unfettered power in the face of a truly consolidated bipartisan elite. The speaker here is right about one thing. There's a great awakening happening currently. People are waking up to the fact that something is fundamentally broken. But when there's a place in the world that so many people think is a problem, that's where we need to make sure we don't miss the mark in identifying the true enemies. It's not always the guy who talks tough and promises change, only to find out himself swallowed by the machine. Sometimes the real villains are the ones who never even get mentioned, the ones who operate so smoothly in the shadows that their names never even come up in mainstream discourse.
So I'm the establishment, just like everyone else. I'm gonna screw you and no lube on Epstein, period. I'm never gonna give it what you want. I was lying all the way and I'm gonna protect the guilty, okay? So then he goes, and then on Israel, I'm gonna give them whatever they want. Okay, Mary Mendelssohn was so good to me. They gave me a lot of money. So now I take your money and I give it to Israel. And slowly the right wing started to wake up, right? And we're gonna talk about this more in the show later with Rogan versus Shapiro. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, guys. So that's a foreign government that's influencing our politics. And other foreign governments try to. Israel's by far the best at it. But Big Pharma is 10 times the size of the Israeli lobby. So that's why they have these enormous monopolies. They used to have patents that lasted 5 years, now they last 12 years for a lot of these drugs. We're not allowed to negotiate prices. They have complete control over the market. They make us pay at least 4 times as much as other developed nations. Why are we paying 4 times what Canada is, or in a lot of cases 8 times, 100 times what Canada, Germany, and France are paying? So it's a robbery. It's nothing but a robbery. And all of this is super obvious. Here, I'll give you more facts because I can't stop. I mean, this is the #1 issue in the country by a landslide, right? Which is that we don't control our own government. We need to get American sovereignty back, not just in the case of foreign policy, but also super importantly in domestic policy and helping the average American. So Representative Oz did a study a couple of years back. They looked at a 5-year period. The top 200 corporations gave $5.8 billion in lobbying, campaign contributions, et cetera. That's a lot of money, $5.8 billion, right? You know how much those same companies got back in that same time period? $4.4 trillion. So it's a great return on investment. They give the politicians $1, then the politicians give them $1,000 back because it's not the politicians' money, it's our money. And they're literally robbing us blind to give to their donors. I can go on and on. Princeton and Northwestern did a study. They studied 20 years, over 2,000 bills. You know what percentage effect the bottom 90%, that's almost all of us, 90% of the country has on public policy, bills that pass? 0%. We have no effect at all. That's not a democracy.
Boom, right there. 0 effect, that's not a democracy. You hear that, folks? That's not just a talking point. That's the cold, hard statistical reality of our representative government. It's a gut punch, isn't it? To think that your vote, your voice, your concern might as well be whispered into a hurricane for all the impact they have on actual policy. This is exactly what we on the right have been screaming about for years. It's not about whether you're red or blue. It's about whether you're in or out of the club. And the average American, the working men and women, the small business owner, the family trying to make ends meet, we are all definitely out. They talk about democracy endlessly, but the studies show that 90% of us have absolutely no say. It's a sham. It's a facade. It's like being invited to a feast, but only getting to watch through a dirty window while the elites gorge themselves on our tax dollars and our freedoms. And what's the typical response from the establishment when you point this out? Oh, you're just being a conspiracy theorist. You're anti-system. You just don't understand the complexities of governance. No, we understand perfectly. We understand that when you have a system where special interests pour billions into campaigns and get trillions back, it's not a democracy, it's a corporation. It's an investment in their corporation. It's not a government of people, by the people, for the people. It's a government of the corporations, by the lobbyists, for the donors. This is the problem. And then this isn't some fringe idea. This is mainstream polling data, academic studies, and frankly, truly just plain common sense if you're paying attention. When the politicians on both sides suddenly unite to pass some massive spending bill that only really benefits a few powerful industries, but then can't agree on a single thing that would genuinely help the average American, you don't need a PhD to figure out who they're really working for. The government and the representatives are working for corporations, period.
And in the midst of all this, Sharon, mainstream media is like, I don't see it. What?
Status quo.
What money in politics? Are you saying Israel has undue influence? You're an anti-Semite. Are you big pharma having too much influence? No, they're just trying to innovate. Oh, you guys sound conspiratorial. You think the politicians just work for their donors? Oh, that's a very naughty thing to say about the beloved politicians. Come on, man. If you did real news, you would do like us. All you do is talk about the donors because they're 100% in charge of our government.
So if they're 100% in charge, and I mean, now you got me really hyped up. I was having a relatively good Friday.
Sorry.
Nothing's going to change. If they are the league owners, they make the rules, they have all the money, they have the police, the courts, they have everything that we don't, that 90% you were talking about. It's never going to change. We have little spurts, this little beautiful spurt in New York with Mamdani, right? But we all know what's going to happen to him. And I hate to be this glass half empty type of person. I'm generally like, I'll never give up. I will never give up. That's generally my attitude. But when you put it like that, we already don't have a democracy. And how the hell do we fight to get it back?
So good news, I have the answer. But first, a couple of things that you mentioned there. Look, Mamdani is the least affected. Why? Because he's an executive there. He's the mayor of the city, right? So he doesn't have to deal with Congress. Congress is nearly 100% corrupt. So now he's gonna have to deal with local politicians, and they also get campaign contributions, but it's a little bit easier to deal with. And since he's the executive, he has a little bit more power than an average guy would in a legislature, right? So he's got a halfway shot at doing something interesting. Now, on the other hand, if you're a legislator, so for example, progressives under Biden, they said, okay, well, we're gonna try to get $15 minimum wage, and we're gonna try to get a little bit of the Green New Deal in, and we had a laundry list of things that we wanted. Almost none of them made it in. And I kept saying to every progressive that went in, for God's sake, you've got to start with money in politics. Because if you don't start with money in politics and you don't fix that, you're not going to be able to win on any other issue. And no one listened, okay? And part of the reason they don't listen is because, number one, when they get into Congress, they get a giant heads. And so they're like, oh, I am a congressperson. I don't listen to anyone anymore, okay? So that's point one. Point two, more importantly, is if they talk about money in politics, they have to talk about how their colleagues are corrupt. Because look, that bar graph we just showed you about the party contributions between 1990 and 2024, that shows you everything you need to know. Because when the Democrats tell you, oh, it's those terrible Republicans that are getting paid off by the donors and they work for the Koch brothers and they're terrible, right? They're getting the same exact amount of money and usually from the same exact donors. Same thing for the Republicans. Oh, we're the populists, we're gonna look out for the average guy. So why does nothing ever change no matter who's the president? You like Biden, you like Trump, and nothing changes because they've given an equal amount to both parties and they have them under complete lockdown. So that's why those corporate politicians, and what's a corporate politician? People who take corporate PAC money, and that's about 98% of Congress. So they own 98% of Congress. That's why nothing ever good happens for us, because they're not all representatives. So I know what you're thinking, Cenk, for God's sake, where's the good news? Okay, so. Okay, so there's, I read your mind. There's two things that we can do. All right, number one, you can change a party completely from the top. So all we have to do is win the Democratic primary in 2028. Our candidate, a clean, honest, smart, strong candidate. I know finding one is tough, but it's a country of 330 million people. We don't have to just pick politicians. We pick the right guy and he can change the whole party overnight. See, that's when the media will go, oh, that's so naive, you can't do that. Really? Because I saw Trump do it. I saw Trump do it with my own eyes. We all saw it. So they're lying to you. Yes, one guy can change the entire party.
Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. One guy can change the entire party. I saw Trump do it. He's absolutely right about the potential for a single, charismatic, and determined individual to disrupt the status quo. Donald Trump proved that you don't have to be a career politician. You don't have to play by their rules. You certainly don't have to be beholden to the same old donors to shake things up. He fundamentally changed the Republican Party, for better or worse, by tapping into a deep well of populist resentment that the establishment had completely ignored. He showed that the people still have power, even if it's just the power to elect an outsider. He bypassed the mainstream media, went directly to voters, and proved that their anointed candidates weren't invincible. That was a truly revolutionary act, and it sent shockwaves through the political elite. They hated him for it, not just because of his policies, but because he exposed how fragile their control really was. However, let's not be naive. While one person can ignite a movement and shift the party's direction, the forces aligned against true change are immense. Trump himself, despite his populist appeal, faced unprecedented opposition from within his own party, from the bureaucracy, from the media, and from the deep state. He was constantly fighting a multi-front war, and it limited how much he could really truly clean up. The idea that a single candidate, even a populist one, can just win the Democratic Party in 2028 and suddenly declare no corporate PAC money and everything changes overnight, yeah, that sounds great, but that's idealistic vision. But because it doesn't really work how it does or how you're saying. It brings a squirt gun to a water fight. That's really what it comes down to. The system is designed to absorb, co-opt, and destroy any genuine threat to its power. They'll find ways around it. Through dark money, through super PACs, through media manipulation, through character assassination. The swamp and the establishment doesn't want an outsider to win. That's why the people love Trump so much, truly.
So if a populist candidate wins the 2028 primary, he goes, that's it. We're not taking corporate PAC money in the primaries anymore. The most honest candidate, the one that's going to serve the voters, is the person who's most likely to win in a primary where there's no corporate PAC money. Now that person will be a fighter. That person is more likely to help you with policies. Now, is that enough? No, but then that person not only can clean up their own party, not only can pass some bills around the edges on money in politics, but to me, the most important thing is they could use the bully pulpit to push for the one thing that will solve all this and will get our democracy back. And it's not an exaggeration, guys, because the thing that I'm going to suggest is super powerful. It's also very difficult. It's an amendment. Constitutional amendments go above the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is who legalized bribery in decisions of 76, 78, and then of course in Citizens United. And again, this is the whole thesis of my book, Justice is Coming. Check it out, and you get the whole full story. You see almost a CSI, a crime scene of how they stole our democracy from us. It was a plan. They executed the plan and it worked brilliantly. Now we've got to reverse that plan. The way that we reverse it is by going above the Supreme Court and getting an amendment. But now you say, well, wait a minute, Cenk, amendments are so hard. You got to get 2/3 of either Congress or the states to agree and 3/4 of the states to ratify. 3/4 of the states, how are you going to get anybody to agree to that when we're such a split country? Well, Sharon, there's one thing we are not split on. Over 90% of Americans hate money in politics. So you ask a Republican voter or a Democratic voter, are you in favor of that corruption where our politicians take donor money, or do you want to end that corruption? And the answer is overwhelming. We want that amendment. And we can't get it without a big enough spotlight because corporate media hates amendments, hates change, loves the status quo. So how do you get past the corporate media? With a guy with a giant bully pulpit. The president must be covered. They can't be like, oh, the president wants a constitutional amendment, but we're not going to talk about it, right? And once you start that process and you shine that spotlight, people are going to love that amendment and there's going to be a giant push for it. They will play the tape of me saying this now, although they should go back to 2011 when I started Wolfpack and get all of these tapes of me saying this because it's gonna happen. But we gotta pick the right guy in the primary in 2028.
So there you have it, folks. We've peeled back a few layers of the political onion, and let's be honest, it stings a bit. The corruption is real, the influence of money is undeniable, and the idea that our voices are truly heard often feels like a cruel joke. But here's the kicker. We can't afford to be cynical and give up. That's exactly what they want. Whether you lean left or right, the core problem of a government beholden to special interests, not its citizens, is something we can all agree on. The fight for American sovereignty, for a government that actually represents us, is the most critical battle of our time. So what do you think? Tell me. We stayed informed, we speak out, we demand accountability, and most importantly, we refuse to be divided by the manufactured culture wars designed to distract us from the real issues. Share this video, spark conversations, and let's keep shining a light on the truth, because if we don't fight for our country, who will? Until next time, stay diligent, stay informed, and keep pushing back against the machine.